It's Friday night! It's the preview show! It's the No Nay Never podcast!
Hello and welcome to the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, but joining me is the headliner, the main man himself, the absolute boss of the preview show, and that is, of course, Dave Statman Roberts. Dave, good evening. How are you? How was your international break?
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it, since we got together to record the preview show. It's come round quick again though, and we're ready and raring to go, aren't we? Although it's going to be a tricky one on Saturday.
Yeah, they're all tricky ones at the moment, aren't they? But yeah, it does seem to fly, but also it feels like a long time. We do miss you when we don't speak to you in the international break, Dave. The team do miss you. We have got, therefore, lots and lots to talk about in this week's episode because we've got all the things that we got up to in the international break to catch up on. We've got a game to preview. We've got some community news. We've got quiz questions. Obviously, game week 7 of the Fantasy Premier League as well has been going on. So goodness me, we have absolutely loads to do. Now, it's been a while since we spoke to you. We didn't set out an analysis show last week. I think mainly just because everyone was a little bit tied up, but quite frankly, I think by the time we all got off that Norwich game, everybody was a little bit down in the dumps and a little bit jaded with the whole thing. I think everybody just wanted to just draw a line under it and sulk for a bit and come back after the international break a little bit refreshed. So we didn't subject you to an hour's worth of us being depressed about the Norwich result. But instead, we asked the man of the hour, the team player who always steps up and helps us, Tom Whittaker, just to record us a few minutes of his thoughts from that Norwich game.
Hi all, it's Tom. Just a few thoughts about the Norwich game, just to touch on. Obviously a difficult one to get an hour podcast out of in terms of events, not a lot going on. I think it was a real low point of the season so far. I think Leicester being our best performance of the season, I think it's fair to say that Norwich was easily our worst. Very one-dimensional. We've always struggled in the past with teams who come for a point against us. We saw that a lot last season as well, but we really looked short of ideas, especially when Vidra went off injured. I think without Cornet and Vidra, we just don't look like the same attacking force at all. A lot of unrest in the stadium. Obviously, everybody very disappointed with the performance level, the fact that we're playing such a poor team. I mean, Norwich already looked destined for the Championship. They had no ambition to come and win. I don't know what games they're actually targeting to win this season, because you'd think with 0 points on the board, you'd fancy your chances against another team with no wins, but they came for a point from the first minute, and you could tell they were delighted to get it at the full-time whistle, and let's be fair, they got it quite comfortably in the end. The only sort of real chance that we really looked like we'd have to get in front in the game was the penalty that should have been given. Obviously, Tim Krul punching Matty Vidra in the face. Once again, VAR proving it's not fit for purpose. What is the point of having someone sat? Well, what's the point of having Lee Mason sat watching anything? He hasn't got a clue in the first place. But why you'd have him sat watching a screen, watching a video of a man getting punched in the face and deciding that there's no infringement being committed there. Unbelievable decision. The frustration is, given how toothless Norwich were, you have to say if we'd have got that penalty and scored, we probably would have gone on and won 1-0. It would have been a big boost for our season, but we've passed that opportunity up. And obviously with the game on Saturday, it's not traditionally a happy hunting ground. You wouldn't expect us to come away with anything from the Etihad, which means there's a lot of pressure placed on the games against Southampton and Brentford at the end of the month now. Hopefully Cornet and Vidra coming back after the international break will give us a new dimension. Obviously, we're not expecting great things against Man City, but the performance level has simply got to improve massively for the Southampton and Brentford games. We need to be targeting at least 4, possibly 6 points from those two fixtures. We need to get the season kick-started sooner rather than later. We've let a fantastic opportunity slip on Saturday to do that. Refereeing decisions aside, we've had more than enough of the ball in the second half to cause any team problems, let alone the worst team in the league by some distance, and we haven't managed to do that. So hopefully it's a turning point. Hopefully we'll look at some changes being made. I know I said on the podcast a few weeks ago I wasn't too bothered about dropping Taylor, but probably his attacking bluntness maybe showed in that game. He put the same cross into the box about 50 times, stood it up to the back post where there was nobody. So perhaps Dye should look at changing things up in the next few games, maybe giving Peters a chance, maybe playing Cork instead of Brownhill. Remains to be seen, but with the next game being a really difficult one to get anything out of, we really need an improvement in at least performance leveling and get a bit of belief back, not just into the players but among the supporters as well. Because I really did sense for the first time after the Norwich game that a lot of people are a lot less confident about staying up than they were this time last season, and I'd certainly count myself among that number.
Excellent. Well, what we didn't do instead, not excellent, obviously everybody's down in the dumps, but excellent that Tom managed to fit that in for us. So thanks, Tom. Now, what we didn't do, we didn't just get lazy listeners. We didn't just take 2 weeks off and do nothing. The team were very, very busy. And you know how much the No Nay Never team likes to treat you to international break specials. And this week, we did just that. Panellist George Poole and our very own Dave Roberts sat down with Barry Kilby. It is now live. You can go to the website and check out the episode, or you can download it from your usual podcast providers. But if you haven't yet had a chance to listen to it, do please go and check it out. I mean, Dave, he was a phenomenal guest, wasn't he? He was everything we wanted and more.
He was, yeah. Barry was fantastic, regaling us with memories from his time as a youngster. His father was a big Burnley fan back in the day, went to all the away games in Europe, but was a Burnley fan home and away for many years, and got Barry into to Burnley, obviously, as a youngster. And then going through his time as chairman, obviously the work he does now with the Barry Kilby prostate cancer appeal, and some really good stories in there. So, really, really good listen, and a fantastic hour with Barry, myself and George, and we found out a lot, and I hope our listeners will as well.
How did you, what was your favourite bit out of it? Without obviously giving any spoilers, which section did you like particularly?
I think probably the early part. I mean, we know in terms of his time as a chairman, he came in 1998. The club wasn't in the best place at that time. He invested money in the club, and I think that's been a big driver to take us forward. We can't underestimate that, but I think we kind of knew that story. What I didn't know quite as much was kind of the early times, and his father being involved, getting him as a and there's one particular one which will come on. I won't spoil it, but we've got a quiz question that relates to that later, so I'll leave that for later for our listeners. But that's a good, really good story that related to a particular match that he went to with his dad.
Excellent. Now, speaking of quiz questions, of course, you set our listeners a particularly tough one because they had all of the international break to mull it over and submit their answers. So before that Norwich preview, we asked you, well, Dave asked you, I say we like I take credit for this, it was Dave. Dave asked you, what was it? Where in Burnley's current spell in the Premier League, which is since 2016, which opposition player has been captain against Burnley on more occasions than any other player? Now, Dave, we got a vast array of guesses for this. Can you tell us what the answer was, please? Because I know I didn't get it right.
Well, actually, I'll start by listing some of the players that it wasn't. Some of the wrong guesses we received. It wasn't Troy Deeney. It wasn't Kasper Schmeichel. And it wasn't Lewis Dunk, although they were all up there. When we look at it, there are 10 players who had more than 5. So we think about it, we've had 5 full seasons and a little bit. And the maximum you could have had is 10. Obviously, some teams haven't played in all those seasons.
Sure.
We've had Troy Deeney of Watford. We mentioned he had 7. He was the second. Other players, Kasper Schmeichel was on 6. Lewis Dunk was on 5. And one player it certainly wasn't was Harry Kane, as the correct answer was his Tottenham teammate, Hugo Lloris. He's captained Spurs for all but one of their Premier League games against Burnley since 2016-17. Harry Kane was actually Spurs captain for the other match, in which Hugo Lloris didn't play. I assume he was injured for that one. But despite being England's captain, Kane has only rarely captained his club side. So that perhaps caught a few people. Well, it did catch a few people out. We had a couple of guesses for Harry Kane as well.
Yeah, it caught me out. I guessed Troy Deeney, and I think my second guess might have been Kasper Schmeichel as well. But I would never have got Hugo Lloris. That was a great question. Albeit a little bit of a tricky one, young Dave. I think you set our listeners a very tough challenge for the international break. So let's see what you do this week. Listeners, do stay tuned because Dave will be setting you another quiz question at the end of the episode. So please do tune in.
Premier League head to head.
Okay, Dave, let's get down to it. We have probably the most unpopular fixture of the season anyway, and also the one fixture we didn't want after that awful run of form for the first 7 games of the season. It is, of course, our trip to the Etihad. It's Manchester City away, Saturday the 16th of October, 3 p.m. kickoff, and quelle surprise, once again, it is not televised anywhere in the UK. So, why don't you kick us off with the history of this fixture by telling us all about the Premier League meetings?
Yeah, this season we're providing you with our head-to-head record between the clubs in Premier League games, either home or away, depending on the venue. So we've played Manchester City in each of our previous Premier League seasons since 2009, and we're still awaiting that first elusive win. We started off reasonably well. We had draws in our first 2 away games against City. That was in 2009-10 and also 2014-15. And we will be mentioning one of those games in a little bit more detail later on. However, following a narrow 2-1 defeat against the 10 men of City in January 2017, that was following the first half sending off of Fernandinho for a foul on Johan Berg Gudmundsson, the results of our more recent visits make rather grim reading for Burnley fans. All of our last 3 league visits have all been 5-0 defeats, and you can also throw in yet another 5-0 defeat in the FA Cup in January 2019, meaning that our last 4 games there have all been 5-0 defeats. So I think it's fair to say that we're all hoping for an improvement this Saturday.
Yeah, we certainly are. We're hoping for one. We're not necessarily expecting one, I don't think. What about the memory match then? Which one have you picked for this?
Well, as we mentioned, we're still awaiting our first Premier League away win against Manchester City, and it's over 48 years since we won any away game in the blue half of Manchester. That was a 1-0 win in the 1973 Charity Shield, which was held at Main Road. But we have to go back even further, over 58 years, to March 1963 for Burnley's last away win in the league, which was also at Main Road. So we're going to focus instead on one of our 2 Premier League draws at the City of Manchester Stadium. We drew our first Premier League visit, that was 3-3 in November 2009. In that game, we took a 2-0 lead, but then having to rely on a late equaliser after City stormed back, it was substitute Kevin McDonald who came up at the end with an equaliser. But we've highlighted that match previously on the preview show, so we're going to focus on the match the next time we played them. That was in December 2014. In this particular game, we had Manuel Pellegrini was in charge of Manchester City. Sean Dyche was obviously Burnley manager by then, and Burnley captain was Jason Shackle. We had 2,900 Burnley away fans there to watch the game. And in terms of the way the game panned out, it was a tricky start. City took a 2-0 lead into the half-time break after goals from David Silva and Fernandinho. So Burnley were facing an uphill struggle to try and get back into the game in the second half. But we did pull a goal back within a couple of minutes of the break. A low shot from Danny Ings. That took a deflection off George Boyd to wrong foot Joe Hart and nestle in the back of the net. And we kept at it, and we were eventually rewarded with an equaliser, thanks to a well-taken, powerful shot from Ashley Barnes, who scored with a spectacular shot into the top corner. We came back from 2-0 down at half-time at City, and we got a 2-2 draw. And we'll be looking for more of that sort of battling spirit that Burnley showed in the second half back in 2014 if we're to come away with anything this Saturday.
Yeah, definitely battling spirit.
On this day!
What about our On This Day feature, please?
Yeah, well, Burnley have a good overall record in games played on the 16th of October. There have been 10 victories in 18 games. That's starting with a 2-0 home win over Burton Swifts in 1897. Tom McClintock scored the first goal, although there was such a scramble in the goal mouth for the second that newspapers at the time do not credit a goal scorer. and it goes down in the record books merely as a scrimmage. That victory kept Burnley at the top of the second division. We played 4 more times on October 16th before the outbreak of World War II, with a goalless draw at Barnsley in 1909, followed by 3 more victories. We had a 1-0 win at home to Bradford Park Avenue in 1920. We had a thumping 5-1 away win at Ewood Park. That was in 1926. And in that game, it was 1-1 after 80 minutes. 4 of those goals for Burnley were scored in the last 10 minutes to make it 5-1. And we had a 3-2 away win at Plymouth Argyle in 1937. We tasted defeat on this date for the first time in 1948, as Huddersfield Town came to Turf Moor and won 2-1. But the next 5 matches between 1954 and 1973 were all Burnley wins, although we needed extra time to knock Carlisle United out of the League Cup 3-2 in 1973. The match on 16th of October 1976 was Burnley's 3,000th league game. When the visitors, Charlton, raced into a 4-1 lead after 54 minutes, it wasn't looking good, but Burnley stormed back to earn a 4-4 draw. 6 years later, in 1982, we faced Charlton again, this time at the Valley, but we lost 2-1. We got back to winning ways in 1993 with a 1-0 win at Bradford City. Marlon Beresford saved an early penalty before Adrian Heath scored the only goal of the game. Since then, we've drawn away games at Millwall in 1999, Ipswich in 2004, and there was a 3-3 draw at Sheffield United in 2010. Matt Lowton was on the score sheet for the Blades that day. Our most recent game on 16th of October was a 3-1 defeat at Southampton in 2016. Ex-Claret striker Charlie Austin scored 2 of the Saints' goals. So Burnley's overall record on 16th of October is played 18, won 10, drawn 5 and lost 3. With just 1 win in the last 7, our better results are definitely skewed towards the past.
Yeah, that's a common theme at the moment, Dave. It feels like everything at the moment is skewed towards the past. The present's not treating us too fairly, so hopefully that will start to change soon.
Club Connection!
Club Connection then, obviously this is one of our new features for this season. We take a look at a player who spent time at both clubs and focus on one player in particular. How did we decide who we were going to pick this week, Dave? Was it a poll? Was it Dave goes rogue? What was it?
Well, what I did this time, I listed the details of 28 players who've represented both clubs since World War II, and I invited suggestions via our social media channels. Ben Mee is the only current player, so we were looking for a prime candidate from the other 27. The suggestions were the likes of Mick Doherty, Mike Summerby, Adrian Heath and Joey Barton. They were all put forward. But there was also a suggestion from Patrick Walton for Gareth Taylor, and that's who we're going to focus on today.
Oh, Gareth Taylor. What a player. Once sent me a birthday card when I was a child.
Did he really?
Wished me happy birthday. Yes.
I bet you still got it, haven't you?
I still have it somewhere. I think I do. I like him as well because before Burnley got a proper women's team, and particularly before they went pro, Manchester City women were my team because they were from the Northwest, and obviously they've got a lot of Lionesses playing in their team as well, so I supported them. And Gareth Taylor is, of course, is he the first team coach at City?
Head coach, I think.
I will let you tell us in. Tell us all about Gareth Taylor.
Yeah, well, after starting out at Southampton as a youth team player, Gareth Taylor began his senior football league career as a defender, would you believe, with Bristol Rovers. That was in 1991. It was during his time in Bristol that manager John Ward took over and saw his potential as a striker, and that's where he played the rest of his career. In 1995, he joined Crystal Palace before another move to Sheffield United the following year. Manchester City signed him in November 1998, and he went on to score 10 goals in 53 appearances for them, but started to fall out of favour. Following loan spells with Port Vale and QPR, he arrived at Burnley in another loan move in February 2001, and he stayed until the end of that season, scoring 4 goals in 15 appearances. But he was then signed permanently after his contract with Manchester City expired. In total, Gareth Taylor scored 37 goals for Burnley in 106 appearances. 2 of those goals were penalties, but of his other 35 goals, 27 of them were headers, a remarkable proportion. He left Burnley and joined Nottingham Forest in 2003, and after spells at Crewe, Tranmere, Doncaster and Carlisle, he finished his playing career with Wrexham. He was also a full Welsh international, scoring 4 goals in his 15 caps between 1995 and 2004. And following his retirement as a player in 2011, he returned to Manchester City in a coaching capacity, and he's been there ever since. After a spell in charge of City's academy, he was given a new role in May of last year, and as you mentioned, he was appointed as the head coach of Manchester City Women. I'm sure that some of our older listeners may claim that someone like Andy Lochhead or Paul Fletcher was the best header of a football to play for Burnley. But for most of us, that player must surely be Gareth Taylor.
Yep, definitely gets my vote. Did like Gareth Taylor. Good egg.
Scouting report!
Well, that's the end of part 1, where we've obviously focused on the history of this particular fixture. So let's bring you right back to the present for part 2, starting with our scouting report.
Yeah, Spaniard Josep Guardiola Sala, better known to most of us as Pep, took over as Manchester City manager in February 2016. That was after successful spells in charge of Barcelona and Bayern Munich. He's already guided City to 3 Premier League titles, an FA Cup and 4 EFL Cups, although he's yet to deliver the Champions League trophy to his UAE paymasters. More often than not, City have tended to play with a 4-3-3 formation under Pep Guardiola, with slight variations on this theme. However, since losing Sergio Aguero, City haven't really had what you would call an out-and-out striker to lead the line. This means that so far this season, the front 3 have often consisted of any combination of new £100 million signing Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Riyad Mahrez, Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus, most of whom are perhaps what would be described as attacking midfielders rather than forwards. However, this hasn't particularly dented City's ability to score goals. Their main summer transfer business was, of course, the arrival of Jack Grealish from Aston Villa for that massive record fee, although they did sign 18-year-old Brazilian winger Keiki for £9 million and also backup goalkeeper Scott Carson. Looking ahead to who might be the key players for City on Saturday, we turn once again to the current FPL points totals for the season to date. After 7 game weeks, it's a defender, that's João Cancelo, who tops the list of City players with 44 points, and he's closely followed by Gabriel Jesus on 41, Ruben Diaz on 39 and Ederson on 35. However, we know all too well that City have quality in abundance in all areas of the pitch, and Saturday will be a massive challenge, especially taking into account our recent record there. In terms of their injuries, they are missing. Well, again, we're recording this early before the press conferences. We don't know for certain, and there may have been some injuries as well from the internationals. The players who were previously doubtful was in Zinchenko and Gundogan. Although they were expected to be back. Liam Delap's had a knock, and Benjamin Mendes obviously out suspended for other reasons. There are doubts over the availability of Ederson and Gabriel Jesus due to the timing of the kickoff of Brazil's match against Uruguay. That's kicking off about just over 36 hours prior to Saturday afternoon's kickoff. So there are several other clubs that are affected by some of the South American games going on, and City is certainly one of them with those 2 players.
Good. Who can we get any more? Can we find any other obscure rules that we can get most of their squad taken out? Dave, I'm really not looking forward to this fixture. It's going to be really horrible. Well, we do like to give you a balanced view here on the No Nay Never preview show. And of course, you've only taken our word for it. So we have brought you this week an opposition view, whereas we spoke to Jonathan Berry, who gave us his thoughts ahead of the match.
Opposition view.
Hello, I'm John. I'm a City fan. These are my thoughts on the season so far. So obviously we didn't start so well, defeat away at Spurs, but since then you can see that the players have got back into the game. We had a lot of players in the late stages of the Euros, and I think that affected us. Foden has come back the last couple of games, and he's looked, as fabulous as he did last season. If you're looking since the start, the only real disappointment is drawing 2-2 at Liverpool, because I think we could have won that game. But you would have taken that result before the kick-off, so I'm happy with that so far. So I think the season, again, it should be a brilliant, marvellous season for us. I think we'll fight on all 4 competitions. I think we've got a very good chance of winning the league. I think we'll win the Carabao Cup again, because we love to win it. The FA Cup and the Champions League, you need a bit of luck to go all the way in those competitions. And that's, I thought last year we might have had a chance to get there and actually win the Champions League. But if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, we're not playing Gillingham and York and Blackpool in Division 2. So that's great. As for the setup on Saturday, second-guessing Pep's ideas for formation is one of the great mysteries of life, really. Every now and then he just comes up with something completely different. But I'd be very surprised if we didn't go for the usual 4-3-3 or 4-1-2-3, however you look at it, and it kind of changes into a 3-7-0. So we'll go with a false 9, I'm sure. I expect to see Edison in goal, because apparently we're sending a plane over to Brazil to ferry them back, especially after their game on Friday morning at 2 a.m. So an Edison is vital to the way we play. I'd expect to see Ruben Dias and Aymeric Laporte at the heart defence. Again, I think Rodri will probably play the defensive midfielder for us, because he offers a bit of height, which is important against teams like Burnley. Then Bernardo, De Bruyne, Foden, Ferran Torres, and let's say Riyad Mahrez, and probably Cancelo and Walker would be our fullbacks. So Burnley haven't had the greatest start to the season. I think it's 3 draws and 4 defeats, but they've had some good results. Getting a 2-2 draw away at Leicester, you have to be a decent team to be able to play against them. That was one of our better results this season. So, I'm a big fan of Jay Rodriguez. In an alternate universe, Ben Mee would have been our captain for the last 10 years rather than yours. So, I expect Burnley to be strong. I like the way they set up. I like, burnt into my head is a 2-2 draw at the Etihad. I think it was like December 2014. I actually looked it up because it seems a lot closer to me than it previously was. But, Ashley Barnes just gave our defence the runaround, and that's how I expect Burnley to play. So if we're looking for a result, I was really surprised that we'd actually beat you 5-0 in this fixture so often recently. I expect City to win. I'm going to go for a 3-1 for the result. And a goal for Jay Rodriguez, because I really like him. I think I was at the game where he got his bad injury for Southampton, and it was a great shame to see. So it's really nice to see him back playing football again, playing in Lancashire. And let's hope Burnley turn it around and stay up. All the best to you.
Confident, and quite rightly so. Moving on then, Dave, who have we got in the middle? Who's going to be our referee?
Well, it's the second time already this season that our paths have crossed with 50-year-old referee Martin Atkinson from Wakefield. He's set to take charge at the City of Manchester Stadium on Saturday. He was a last-minute replacement when we played Everton at Goodison Park last month. So when we previewed that game, we didn't get the chance to review his updated profile and stats, because I think it was sometime on the Monday when they decided they were going to change the referee. He's one of the more senior members of the select group of referees, alongside several other officials who are now into their 50s, like Mike Dean, Andre Mariner, John Moss and Kevin Friend. 22 of his previous 28 matches in charge of Burnley have been in the Premier League, and our record in those games is not too bad. Although we lost the last 2, that includes that recent game at Everton, and also a 2-0 home defeat to Manchester City in February, we actually won the previous 6 before that. Overall, we have won exactly half, so that's 11 of the 22 matches in the Premier League which Martin Atkinson has been in charge of. He was also the referee for one other match between Burnley and Manchester City. This is again at Turf Moor, and that was the 1-1 draw in February 2018. He's shown 3 red cards in the previous 22 Premier League matches involving Burnley. One of those was to a Burnley player. That was Ashley Barnes, who got a second yellow card late on at Hull in 2017, and also 2 to opposition players. He sent off Nemanja Matic at Chelsea in 2015, for retaliation, and also sent off Hal Robson-Kanu for West Brom at Turf Moor in 2017. The video assistant referee on Saturday will be another guy we mentioned just earlier on. That's Andre Mariner.
Great stuff.
Statman Dave's Stat of the Week.
I know we're not going to leave it there though, Dave, because I know you like to treat our listeners, so why don't you dive into those deep pockets of yours and give everybody your miscellaneous stat of the week.
Yeah, this week's bonus stat is all about one of Burnley's signings from the most recent transfer window. And considering this week's opposition, who else could it be but Maxwell Cornet? He has a very handy knack of scoring goals against Manchester City. And he's managed to find the net 4 times for Lyon in just 3 Champions League games, all of which was since Pep Guardiola took over as City manager. One of those was in Manchester. That was a 2-1 away victory in September 2018, followed by he scored both of Lyon's goals in the reverse fixture as the teams drew 2-2 in Lyon a couple of months later. Finally, he also scored the opener in Lyon's 3-1 quarter-final victory in Lisbon in August 2020, when all the final stages were played out in Portugal. And those goals haven't exactly been tap-ins either. So if there's anyone who might be able to change our fortunes after a dreadful run of heavy away defeats at the Etihad, then Maxwell Cornet is surely a prime candidate to step up. He was an unused sub for the Ivory Coast in the second of their 2 games against Malawi in Benin earlier this week, but we'll have to wait and see if he's involved in the match this weekend.
I kind of feel like Dyche doesn't really have much of an option here. I mean, we created so little in that Norwich game, and this is Norwich at home, bottom of the league, and had lost all 6 of their opening games, and we just couldn't break them down, which is just shocking. I just think Dyche has got no choice but to play our most creative player and try and get something. But I'd be interested to see what you think about that, listeners. Drop us a line. You can tweet us at knownandever, or you can email us at previewshow@knownandever.net. Tell us whether you think Maxwell should be playing, even if he's only 90% ready. Give us a bell. Let us know. Well, I know we have to talk about the game, Dave, but I really struggle to get myself very excited about this game. I think these are the kind of games that you want to be playing when you're in the Premier League. You want to go to the Etihad. You want to see our boys play against the likes of Jack Grealish, who's obviously an absolute, football's newest superstar. But also I really don't want to have to play them because it just feels like we're going to get beaten 5-0 again. And it's deflating, isn't it? It just feels like it's just not an even playing field.
It's difficult, and as we know, we have been there, and we've not played badly, but City can just overwhelm you, and not just Burnley; they can overwhelm teams at the top of the table as well. We've seen that they've annihilated the likes of Manchester United and Liverpool before as well. So it's not just us; they do it to other teams, and on their day, they are scary sometimes. But it may be one of those where the best we can hope for is to get a 0-0 draw. It seems unlikely, but you never know. It's one of those where they have had a lot of players involved in internationals. There could be some weariness from having played in midweek. They're obviously looking like they're going to lose a couple of players who've played out in for a match in Brazil. That's kind of kicking off late on Thursday, I think. So it's within 36 hours or so of Saturday's kickoff. So I don't think they're going to be available. So there's a few other issues there. We've mentioned already that they don't really have an out-and-out striker. They do have some scary players in terms of attacking midfielders. And if you've got 2 or 3 of them playing and they're on their A game, then you don't really need a striker. They've shown that in the past that they can score goals from anywhere on the pitch. So it's going to be tricky, as we know. We don't have too high hopes in terms of a result, but it's one of those where it's a case of, you never know. You never know.
No, I do know, and it's not going to be pretty. Dare I ask you for a goal prediction, please? Score prediction, not a goal prediction. Yeah, will it be 5 or will it be 7? What do you think?
I'm going to go positive and say we're going to get a 0-0 draw.
Wow, you think they're going to fail to score against us?
Well, it has to happen
Roberts,
sometime.
this This is a revelation. I'm gobsmacked. This is amazing. What a fantastic prediction. Oh, I don't feel like I can go ahead now and say we're going to get beat, because you've put me on the spot there, and you've really gone for it by giving us some positivity. I'm going to say we're going to win 1-0. Just because I'm getting on board the Dave Roberts boogie train, and I'm all in here, guys. I'm all in. Dave Roberts predicts 0-0 away at the Etihad. I'm in for it. Let us know whether you're on Team Dave or whether or not you're orbiting a little bit closer to the real world. Let us have your goals, your score predictions, who scored, how they scored. You know the drill, guys. You can tweet us at nonanever or email us at previewshow@nonanever.net. I'm shook, Dave. Absolutely shook. Right, let's move on.
Fantasy Premier League update.
None and ever Fantasy Premier League. It is game week 7 is done and dusted before the international break, so we have a full update to give you, Dave. Take it away. Who are the movers and shakers? What's been going down?
Yeah, well, after 7 game weeks, we have yet another league update for you, and it's still very close in the upper echelons. 17 points separate our current top 5, who are... We have Jaden Fitton is a non-mover in 5th place on 488 points, and is level with Andrew Smith, also on 488 points in 4th place. And then we've got 3 climbers, our next 3. We've got Joe Elliott on 492 in 3rd place. We've got Jack Toner, got a nice round 500 in 2nd place, and our leader is Deck Clark on 505 points. So it's still tight at the top, but our leaders are kind of they're sort of panning out, staying up there, and some familiar names that we've seen from previous weeks as well.
Yeah, definitely. And shout out to Jack Toner. He's somebody I do know, so it's always nice to see him at the top of there. What about the rest of us? How's Team None Ever doing?
Well, just before I do that, we obviously that last set of matches marked the start of October. We've got 3 more game weeks before we discover who our October manager of the month will be. Andrew Smith was our manager of the month for August, and Adam Major for September. And leading the way so far for October is Paul Gibson with just 1 week, but he racked up an impressive 70 points in game week 7. So he's our current October leader in the race for manager of the month.
He is, and none of our managers have been in touch yet to claim their stickers. I've got them here. I've got the little sticker. I'm going to stick something on Twitter. I'm going to entice them with a little picture of the sticker. Say, come and claim your stickers. You never know. Hopefully, Paul Gibson will win October's, and he'll be the first one to claim his. Let's see how that goes. Okay, now what about the rest of us, Dave? What is happening with Team None and Ever?
Right, well, you're actually down slightly in the main league, down to 206th. That's with 351 points. It is considerably above the relegation places, so you're well safe, I think, where you are. But you are rooted to the bottom of our podcasters mini league. Producer Matt had a good week and overtook me, but Adam Dennett is still out in front. So better luck moving up the table this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to beat you guys because you're all really good. The way I'm looking at this is that where I've been for the last 3 seasons, I've never been this far up the table. I've never been mid-table before. I'm doing all right, baby steps, do it, baby steps. Team of the week then. Who are the superstars in terms of the actual players, not the managers?
Yeah, well, we're going to list the 11 players who would have earned you 120 points if you had picked all of them, although that would have been extended further to 135 if your captain had been Diego Llorente of Leeds United. He scored 15 points, and if you'd had the foresight to triple captain him, you could have scored 150 points. These were the other players in the high-scoring team of game week 7 in a 4-4-2 formation. We had, as the goalkeeper, was Tim Krul of Norwich, who I think if that decision had been given against him for the blatant penalty that the referee or VAR didn't give, he certainly wouldn't have been in there, but he's in there as it stands on 9 points. Our 4 defenders were the aforementioned Diego Llorente we've mentioned. We had a couple of Chelsea defenders, that's Chalabar and Azpilicueta, and also a Burnley player. We've got Charlie Taylor Charlie Taylor's in there, as well as the other high-scoring defender. Midfielders, we had Mo Salah, we had Højbjerg of Tottenham, Andros Townsend and Son of Tottenham, and then we had, surprisingly, 2 Wolves strikers, Hwang and Jimenez of Wolves were the 2 strikers. That was the theoretical best team, but in reality, one manager did get 102 points. They triple captain Mo Salah, and was the highest scoring team out of over 8 million teams who've entered into the FPL so far this season.
Wow, 102 points.
It was a tough week, yeah.
Yeah, but wow, that's massive. Well, we're going to have another FPL update for you when we do our next preview show, where we'll be looking ahead to our away trip to face Southampton at St Mary's. But in the meantime, keep going, managers. Tell me, and you know what? Get in touch with me and share your little secrets. I'm doing well this season. I'm doing better than I've ever done. So any hints and tips? Not you, Adam Dennett, because you give me duff pieces of advice. So all of you managers out there, apart from Adam Dennett, pass me some tips. Help a girl out.
Statman Dave's quiz question.
Okay, let's finish off with a quiz question, Dave. I'm intrigued to see whether or not you've gone massively rogue and set an absolute stinker again, or whether you're going to give our listeners a chance. What have you decided to set, please?
Well, it could be a free hit this week. We're going to leave you with a quiz question with the difference, as it ties in with this week's other podcast, which we mentioned, in which George and I spoke with former Burnley FC chairman Barry Kilby. He was very open with us, telling us loads of interesting stories, and also revealed he'll be there at the Etihad this Saturday in the away end with the pie chuckers, as he put it. But he astonished us with a surprising revelation. So the question we're putting to you this week is, which ground was former Burnley FC chairman Barry Kilby ejected from as a youngster along with his father? Although we'd never encourage our listeners to Google a quiz answer, although we do suspect that this does happen, we would positively encourage you to listen to our Barry Kilby special in which he tells this particular story.
I was going to say, I like where you've gone with that quiz question, Dave. Encouraging our listeners to go ahead and listen to our Barry Kilby special. I like it. Well, once they've listened to the Barry Kilby special, how do they get in touch and submit their answers?
Well, you can tweet us or send us a direct message on Twitter. That's at NoNayNever. You can email us at previewshow@nonaynever.net, or you can reply to the post for the preview show on either the No Nay Never Facebook page or on YouTube.
Excellent stuff. Well, that's all we've got time for this week, I think. Let's wrap it up. Have we got any other business, any community news or fixture changes or anything like that, Dave?
Just one interesting thing to mention. On Saturday, I'm sure there's lots of our listeners who'll be going along to Manchester for the match. There's actually 4 Manchester City players who played in their 1967-1968 title-winning side, and they're going to be receiving belated recognition on Saturday. Paul Hintz, Stan Horn, Bobby Kennedy, and the family of the late Harry Dowd will be presented with title winners' medals. Some years ago now, I made a suggestion that the players who played 5 or more games in Burnley's 1959-60 title-winning season but didn't receive medals deserved to get them retrospectively. But it's only a recent rule change by the Premier League and EFL, which has been championed by Manchester City, which now allows this to happen. The 3 Burnley players are Ian Lawson, who played in 8 league games and scored 3 goals, Trevor Meredith, who scored 3 goals in 7 appearances, including the all-important winning goal against Manchester City at Main Road. It's quite fitting for Saturday. And that was in the final match of the season. And also the late Billy White, who scored 2 goals in 6 league appearances that season. Hopefully Burnley Football Club will take note of what Manchester City are doing for their forgotten heroes, as well as the likes of Wolves, Everton and some other clubs who are doing the same for their past players. And finally recognise the achievements of Ian Lawson, Trevor Meredith and the family of the late Billy White, who passed away in 2000.
Definitely. What a great campaign, Dave. Are you doing anything in terms of contacting the club and seeing if they have got this on their radars? I feel like somebody needs to speak to the club about this.
I've been in touch with a couple of the local journalists who are on with it, yes.
Good. Excellent. Or if not, the next time that you're on the Clarets player, you can just tell them. Just say, look, oi, sorted out. Is that everything? I don't have any other business at all, Dave. I think that's everything that we've got. No fixture changes that I'm aware of. Obviously, guys, don't forget that the next round of the Cup game at home to Spurs is coming soon as well. So if you haven't got your tickets for that and you want to have an attendance at that game, and that's coming up. But otherwise, we are going to leave it there. Excellent. Another show under the belt, and let's hope for a change in the Claret's fortunes. So we can start being a little bit more upbeat on these shows because we're all getting a little bit. My thanks, as ever, go to everybody who has contributed to making this podcast and getting it out there. Quick thanks again to Tom, who spared us all the pain of having to relive the Norwich game and gave us his thoughts at the top end of the show. To Jonathan Berry for the opposition view and just making us all feel miserable as hell about this upcoming fixture. Turf Moor Stadium announcer Dominic Walker for his specially recorded previous show announcements. Producer Matt, of course, who does a sterling job of getting all of these together. Quick personal thanks from me to George Poole, our Claret's Trust member and regular panellist, who, along with Dave, took their time out this week to do that special with Barry Kilby, and it was a long night, and they all put a lot of hard work into making a fantastic special. So thanks to you guys, because that's one for the archives, is that one. We can keep hold of that for prosperity and look at fond memories with our Barry. And finally, again, to you, Dave, for all the hard work you've put in putting these stats together for the preview show. A lot of hard work goes into this, and I know you love it. I know it's your passion, but it's still a big time commitment. So we are all very grateful that you will share those with us. So thank you. Last but no means least, you, the listener, for downloading and listening to this episode. Your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. We will be back. We're going to suck it up, guys, and we're going to do an analysis show next week where we look at what happened away at City and see if we can claw any positives from that and see if Dave was right with his 0-0 prediction. So do join us on Tuesday as a panel. Hopefully start to look at where we can get this season moving. And Dave and I will be back next Friday looking ahead to that away tie at Southampton. That is everything. So do get in touch if you've got any comments or questions, and take care in the meantime. This has been the preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.